Which team will come out of Ames, Iowa in last place in the Big 12? Will it be the West Virginia Mountaineers or will it be the Iowa State Cyclones as these two teams battle to discover who, in fact, is not the worst team in the conference so far? And I brought a very special guest on to talk about it. So pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and let me serve you up this shot of top shelf college football content. What is up, college sports fans, fellow members of Mountaineer Nation, and fellow Big 12 fans? This is Coos. Pull up that chair and let's talk about the game between West Virginia and Iowa State. We're going to do a preview, talk about keys to victory for each team, key players to watch for each team. We'll go over some odds and some team and individual stats as well. And to talk about this game, I brought along a very special guest. And I brought along Connor, who covers Iowa State. How you doing, Connor?
How's it going, man? I love the Coos nickname. I know we talked a little bit before this. I didn't ask you where it came from.
It is a nickname that I got when I was in, I think I was in about the 7th grade. You're a lot younger than me. Are you familiar with Bob Cousy?
Yeah, Cousy Award, right?
No, he was a famous basketball player for the Celtics back in the 1960s.
That is so far out of my scope because I'm a big hockey guy. So
I got you.
Start talking NBA with me. I get all.
Yeah, so that's where the name comes from. I was apparently doing something at basketball practice, and somebody said that looks like Bob Cousy as a joke, and it stuck, man. They called me Cousy, and then they shortened it to Coos, and then next thing you know, that's what everybody calls me. Now that's pretty much. I mean, it's even what my wife calls me. So when I was trying to come up with a name for my channel, I thought, hey, why not use that, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, Connor, go ahead and let my guests know, let my viewers know where they can find you at, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So I cover Iowa State football, men's basketball, women's basketball for CycloneFanatic.com. Pretty big following over there. A lot of passionate Iowa State fans. I sit there. We're watching every game. We watch every Big 12 game pretty much. I try to take it all in, man. I love college sports, love watching it. Twitter is up above, obviously, and if you got any racing fans that follow us, we popped up a new racing website a couple years ago, right in the middle of COVID, that my boss made for us, called Always Race Day. So give that follow if you're interested in motorsports at all. We do a ton of stuff like that. So
awesome. Thanks for that intro, and I will make sure to put the link to Cyclone Fanatic in the description box of the video, so that they can check you guys out. I know you're very active on Twitter, so I'm always checking out you guys there as well, and seeing what the latest tweets you guys are putting out there. Like I said in my intro, this is the battle. To the outside, to fans outside of our fan base, it's probably not a very exciting game to watch. Just to be frank. Not many casual fans are wanting to watch 2, 3, and 5 teams. But right now, we're the two bottom teams in the league. We're sitting at 1-4 in the Big 12 play. You guys are at 0-5. We're 3-5. You guys are 3-5 overall. So it's kind of trying to see who can avoid being at the bottom, right? At least for now.
Yeah. From like a real outside fan perspective, it looks like that. I'll make fun of Iowa State here a little bit and call it that old toilet bowl matchup between 3-9, destined to go 3-9 Cyclones in Kansas or something like that in 2013. We've seen a few of those games, but this is, I think, far from it. I think the Big 12's most top to bottom competitive conference in the country, and like West Virginia beating Baylor earlier, like it showed it. So I like what Neil Brown's doing over there. I think they're two fine teams. They're not the prettiest numbers based right now, but I don't think it's going to be too bad of a game, too boring of a game, or anything like that. So at least that's got that to be excited about.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be boring. It may be low scoring a little bit because I know your defense, which we'll talk about later, but I don't want to get too far ahead. But your all's defense is looking really, really good so far, and we've got a pretty good offense, so it should be exciting in that regard. But first, let's I'm gonna kind of touch on the odds of the game real quick, just for those who might be interested in that. ESPN's matchup predictor has Iowa State at a 70.7% chance to win. West Virginia only a 29.3% chance. Vegas right now, as we're doing this recording, has Iowa State at -7, so a 7-point favorite at home against the Mountaineers, and the over/under on the game is 50.5. So they're expecting a game in the 20s. It looks like. So anyway, what do you think about those odds there, Connor? Are you surprised by that at all, or do you think that's about right?
I was surprised the line leaned so heavy to Iowa State. I figured it would be closer to 3 or 4 just because of the dud kind of games Iowa State's been putting up on offense. I think I don't like betting the under. I feel like if I'm watching a sporting event, then I want to cheer for touchdowns and cheer for scores. So if I ever bet the under, I try to subconsciously like not watch that game. But I definitely bet it this weekend. Iowa State's defense, as you said, is insane. Right now, they're playing at a really elite level. I know they gave up 27 to Oklahoma, but I mean, those guys are putting something really special together and have been lights out this year. So,
Right. Yeah, and we're going to touch on the team stats next. So let's do that real quick, and I'll actually share that for our viewers on the screen so they can, for those who are watching on YouTube, so they can follow along with us. But when you go down here, you'll look and see at the discrepancy here in these stats. Points per game, West Virginia's at 34.4. Iowa State's only at 21.6. Iowa State is actually last in the league in scoring. West Virginia is about middle of the pack, number 6 in scoring. You've got points allowed per game. West Virginia's at 34.6. Iowa State 16.6. By far the best in the league. That's just an elite level defense right there. Total yards, West Virginia's putting up about 435.8. Iowa State 370. Yards allowed, West Virginia 416.9. Iowa State 295. Passing yards allowed, West Virginia 283 or 284 really. Iowa State 180. Rushing yards allowed, West Virginia 133. Iowa State 115. And then let's go up here offensively. West Virginia's putting up about 264 yards, putting up about 264 yards through the air. Iowa State about 273. Yards rushing, West Virginia's going about 172 a game, and Iowa State's rushing for about 97 a game. So, based on looking at those numbers, Connor, it looks like Iowa State's really struggling to run the ball this
yeah,
year. What's behind that, you think?
bit of an understatement to say really struggling. I don't. It's very bad. They've had 5 Big 12 games, and they've had 5 games under 100 yards rushing. Gyrell Brock got a little banged up against Kansas, and he really hasn't looked the same since. He hasn't looked quite as explosive. He hasn't done the things that we saw him do against Iowa in this rushing conundrum Iowa State's in right now. It's really taken the offense in a completely different direction than it looked like it was going through the first 3 games. Obviously, 2 of those are Ohio and Southeast Missouri, so you don't take a ton of stock into that. But second game of the season, Iowa State had what looked to be not too many issues running the ball against Iowa. And that's a great defense that they have over there in Iowa City. So you look at what happened in Big 12 play, and the issues didn't really persist against Baylor either. It didn't look horrendous. Didn't fail to put points on the board. It didn't look bad. And the
Right.
last 4 games, it has just taken a drastic fall. Cartavius Norton is kind of the second string running back. He's a freshman. He just played his first game where he was like healthy for every snap from the start of the game to the end of the fourth quarter. And he hasn't been able to pick up what an injured Gyrell Brock leaves on the football field for Iowa State. So that's really the big story behind the 3-5 record and the 5-game losing streak. And it's something no one in Ames expected going into it. And still looking back at it, I think they still, little mistakes in some of those games and the failure to rush the football is what has knocked Iowa State back.
I got you. But to reverse that, when you look at the passing game, it looks like Hunter Dekkers is doing pretty well this year in the passing game. Him, and obviously you've got, which we'll touch on key players in a minute, but you've got Xavier Hutchinson over there who's just an absolute stud. So
He's doing all right. He's adjusted kind of okay. I would say like the growing pains that you get with a younger quarterback, especially in his first season. It's taken him a little bit, and he's not necessarily a guy that can come in and change the offense, at least not right now.
Mhm.
When that rushing game's not working for him, it really gets hard to open up the offense and call different plays. And you're taking a like if you rush on second down for 1 yard instead of 5 yards, like they were
Right.
getting with old running backs. Obviously, those are NFL guys in Montgomery and Brees Hall, but you would have a 3rd and 2 rather than a 3rd and 7. You know, Dekkers panics a little bit sometimes. There's times in the game where he's got one receiver that he wants to throw to, and that's the guy that's going to get the ball, or no one's going to get the ball, or it
Yeah.
might be an interception. So yeah, I wouldn't say he's been uh, really bad by any means, but he has some growing pains that he's been going through this year, and that's another part of just everything that the I guess you could call it the perfect storm that has kind of hindered Iowa State's offense into looking like something that it needs to win football games.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking at the stats here as you're talking. He's third in the conference in passing right now. Uh, looks like so. He's a redshirt freshman. Is that right?
I believe so. Might be a redshirt sophomore.
Or sophomore? Okay.
I
So
think
that's
it's sophomore. I'd have
yeah.
to go double check.
Um, so yeah, I mean, just from as an outsider looking in, it looks like you guys are really. If I think if you guys could get your running game figured out, it would change your entire offense. Just in my opinion, because it would take a lot of the pressure off a young quarterback, and he wouldn't have to try to win the game essentially by himself.
Yeah, and we have a former running back for Iowa State that works for us named Jeff Woody, and he has a great explanation of kind of looking at where is the running back looking to go? What gaps can he go through? What type of plays can Iowa State call to complement the skill set of whatever running back? They have 4 running backs that have each gotten a lot of play this year. Maybe Eli Sanders a little less than the other 3, and Dion Silas less when the other 2 are healthy. But just plays that Iowa State can call that the blocking scheme complements the running back, and that even hasn't looked very sharp. It didn't look very sharp against Oklahoma, and now you're kind of second guessing like, are these guys that good? Are we recency bias towards the last game? What are we kind of looking at in terms of what we have back there and what the offense brings to the table?
Right. Um, and as far as West Virginia goes, I mean, really, our bread and butter is our offense. It's what we rely on. The problem is because our defense has been atrocious this year. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're next to last in the Big 12, I think, in passing yards given up, and but our offense is up there in the top half of the league. So, but it's been inconsistent though. They don't, they first 2 games of the year against Pitt, they looked pretty good, and then they looked really good against Kansas offensively. But then after that, it's kind of been a slow, almost like a slow regression, to be honest with you. Uh, the games that we can run the football really well, we do okay. The games we don't run the football so well in, we struggle, and because JT Daniels has been good, but there again, he's not played his best ball the last couple of games either. Not sure, it's not all his fault. I'm sure he's not getting the help he needs at all times. But last week in the uh, game against TCU, he missed a lot of throws. I mean, Coach Brown even today in his press conference said that JT missed several throws downfield that could have changed the game, and he wasn't missing those throws early in the year. So I don't know if he's got something going on with his arm, if it's just I don't know what it is, but he's just not looked like himself the last couple of games. So I'm hoping that he can get that turned around because we're going to be without C.J. Donaldson, who's been our star freshman running back this year. Tony Mathis, our starting running back, is questionable. They said he'll be basically a game time decision. So we're really thin at the running back position right now, and we've got our starting left guard is going to be out again. He had a death in the family, so he's going to miss his 2nd game in a row. So we've had some injury issues starting to pile up on us here on the offensive side of the ball. And with our defense struggling the way it is, we really can't afford that because we have to outscore people to win the games. Uh, hopefully, we'll be able to do that this weekend. But as good as your all's defense is, it's definitely going to be a test for our offense for sure.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really tough with that defense there. And I think you saying that like makes me think like my line take is already a cool take. Not that Iowa State will win by 6 or more, but that's probably why the line got to
Yeah,
um, as high as it did with the injury issues West Virginia's going through. And you never want to see a program kind of have that. You want to see the guys that have kind of lined up all season, the guys that the names of and have performed all year. So I know like there's a big seems like a lot of quarterbacks. Matt Campbell was talking about this at one of his pressers. It seems like a lot of college quarterbacks have been getting hurt this year for whatever reason. So even with the roughing the passer for tackling somebody who has the football in their hands hasn't made the game much safer. So hopefully that's I don't know. I don't really know how you look at a phenomenon like that, or if you go really overprotective with quarterbacks, but you want to see those guys out there.
no, you don't. I never like to see anybody hurt. You want to see a team come in full strength regardless, because at the end of the day, it's just a game, and these guys are human beings, and they've got futures ahead of them. At the end of the day, and then two, from a competition perspective, like I said, you want to beat a team at their best. Uh, but it's a violent game, and injuries are going to happen. It's just this time of year. We're at the time of year where the teams that have the best depth are usually going to be able to win games. A lot of cases, or the
Yeah,
ones who are just lucky and don't get don't get as many injuries. Sometimes that plays a role in it too.
yeah, that was a big talking point coming into the season. I know my boss, his name's Chris Williams.
Hmm.
You'll see his tweets if you follow Cyclone Fanatic. I promise he's a good dude. He loves West Virginia too.
Does he?
I've never seen him give hell to any West Virginia fans. Uh, so that's a good thing. He doesn't like Holgerson, but that one's done and gone. So
I
I think
got you.
he's all good with West Virginia. But he was saying before the year that this two deep for Iowa State was the best two deep roster that they've had since Matt Campbell came to Ames, because you're getting more recruits and you're building a foundation and stuff, and that's where the hype and excitement was for Iowa State fans this year, even though they were losing a quarterback like Brock Purdy. And I think people didn't really realize through the first 3 games how big of a difference Brock Purdy made. I came home from Iowa City, and my dad was telling me that Hunter Dekkers was better than Brock Purdy, and this guy's going to take us somewhere special. Uh, no, I'm not laughing at Dekkers, but my dad is very overreactionary, but
I
he's
got
a
you.
very common fan when it comes to stuff like that.
I got you. Well, but I had heard the same thing on some various Big 12 shows. It's different podcasters and different people talking about Iowa State, and I've heard the same thing, that from a skill set standpoint, he may be better than Brock Purdy. So it'll
Yeah,
be anxious to see that if that pans out over time, because obviously he's got a couple more years in the program. But if he can have the success even close to what Brock Purdy had, you guys are set for the future, or at least for the next couple seasons anyway.
yeah, he has the tools. Behind him, he's got a 4-star quarterback recruit in J.J. Cole
Mhm.
that graduates this spring. So JJ's a tall kid. He looks like the I don't want to call him like a pro style quarterback, but he looks like a college capable body at quarterback for sure for his high school team right now. And there's fans calling for the backup last week, and that's the same overreactionary kind of stuff I'm alluding to.
Yeah.
Uh, but we'll see. Deckers has room to grow, and I think this offseason is really going to be about, is Deckers going to grow, and is JJ Cole going to put pressure on him, and where do the other 2 guys that are there right now that are kind of fading into the background. Um, I'm not saying they'll never play at Iowa State or making predictions or outlandish stuff like that, but it's kind of looking like JJ might pressure Deckers next season.
Mm,
You're kind of looking at
wow.
how do we get Hunter Deckers to improve if you're on the coaching staff at Iowa State.
Well, it's going to be up to him. He's going to have to get better on his own and put time in working on his game, because if not, he may get passed up. It sounds like.
Yeah,
So hopefully,
absolutely. And I
competition
mean,
is a good thing, man.
That's all that all of them were talking. All the players were talking about today at media availability. It's just how everyone on the team still works hard. Everyone on the team is facing adversity head on. They're all working to get past it, and they alluded that like other places that are 3-5 right now, the team might be quitting on them. The locker room might be lost, stuff like that. The old cliches and stuff. But Iowa
Yeah.
State insists. All those guys insist that they got the right culture and the right program to be able to kind of dig out of this hole. So I think that starts for them this weekend. And if you lose, it might get really bad. But we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you know, our coach is on the hot seat right now. So if we lose, I'm not sure he makes it through the end of the season. Just to be straight
Yeah,
up.
can I ask you? I
Yeah.
wanted to know what the feeling was over there for him. So I don't think he's a terribly bad coach at all.
He's not in every category except winning.
Yes.
He's recruiting well. He's doing a lot of good things off the field. Uh, he's a great guy, family man. I mean, he checks every box you want in your coach. But just for some reason that nobody can put a finger on, he just is not winning consistently. He's never beat a top. He's never won a big game. He's only won 5 road games in conference in 3.5 years. We've not been ranked in the top 25 since he's been here, which is not that's not common for us, man. You know, we're not a blue blood program, don't claim to be, but we're not used to going 6-6 or 5-7 every year either. Uh, so the fan base is extremely frustrated. You know, we think 3.5 years has been enough time for him because you got people like Lance Leopold. Look what he's done at Kansas.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially in today in college
Yeah.
football, that's a lot longer leash than what other programs have given.
Yeah, I mean, you look at perfect example to me is Kansas State. Neil Brown and Chris Kleiman were hired the exact same year, and you look where Kansas State is versus where West Virginia is, and it just, as a matter of fact, Kansas State was real close to hiring Neil Brown, and they chose not to. Uh, so, I mean, think how different things could be. Now he could have went to Kansas State and did great. Who knows? Sometimes it's just a bad fit, right? But he's from Kentucky. So and Kentucky and West Virginia have similar cultures. So I mean, he fits from a culture perspective. He fits every single box except he's just not winning games, and it's just baffling. Nobody can really pinpoint why it's not working, but it's not. And I would say a good 75-80% of the fan base wants to move on from Neil Brown right now.
Gotcha. And I do love that big game stat that you threw out there because it's not one that a lot of journalists will use because you have to pay attention. You have to watch the games to know that this one's a big one. It doesn't matter if one team's not ranked. It doesn't matter if both teams are ranked or not. And not winning one of them and one of those like, hey, we're preparing a long time for this one and this one's circled on the calendar.
Yeah.
You want to win those every time. And when you're losing all of them, that's where it gets really evident, right?
Well,
So
and when I say big game, I mean that's kind of objective, I guess, as to what you consider a big game. I mean, some people said the Baylor game we won a couple weeks ago was a big game, but Baylor wasn't ranked at the time.
yeah, I mean, like that one, I would say that's a big win. I don't know if it was a big game going into it, other than
Right.
just winning that week would be
Right.
big. And there's different ways to qualify that.
Right. That's why I say it's
subjective.
objective. It's a matter of opinion, but he's only beat. I'm trying to think what the stat is, but he's only beaten 3 ranked teams maybe since he's been here. He beat you. We beat you guys last year when you were ranked in Morgantown.
I remember that all too well.
Virginia Tech was ranked when we beat them last year, but you guys finished 7-6. Virginia Tech ended up, I think, with a losing record last year, so they ended. Those wins didn't look quite as good at the end of the year. We beat Kansas State his first year here; they were ranked like 25th. So I think that's really about the only ranked wins he has, and that's just not that's not good enough in our opinion. And so most of us, and I was on his bandwagon even after last season. There was probably about half the fan base wanted him gone after last year, and I was not in that camp. I thought, hey man, he needs one more year because this is the year he's finally got most of his recruits in. Because we've still got a lot of leftover Dana Holgerson guys on our rosters, even still today. I mean, Bryce Ford Wheaton, Sam James, or arguably two of our top receivers are both Dana Holgerson recruits. We've got a couple of our linemen were recruited by Holgerson. So Dante Steele is a Holgerson recruit. So there's still some Dana Holgerson guys on the roster, but majority of the roster is now Neil Brown's players, and it's just not. Now they're young; they are young, some of them. But where they have struggled is we lost over 20 guys to the transfer portal in the offseason, and about 4 or 5 of those were from the defensive secondary, including 3 starters, and it just absolutely decimated us on the defensive back end, man. And they went out and got three grad transfers from smaller schools. They got 2 FCS guys and a guy from Colorado State. And during the whole offseason, they said, well, these guys are more talented. They're longer. They're faster. They've played a lot of football, over 1,000 snaps between them. We heard all this. And then become game time, they're not getting it done, man. And so it just makes you wonder, did they miss on a lot of these guys that they thought were going to be great players? And, some people can blame it on the transfer portal all you want to, but at the end of the day, every coach has got to deal with it.
Yeah,
So
it's funny.
The coaches who handle it the best are going to be successful.
Yeah, and I think that's like a big part of where college sports, especially on the basketball end, are going nowadays. It feels like every year, every roster is just a different roster, and that's like the situation for the year. Like Iowa State has a linebacker who's just coming back from injury, so he will play on Saturday. But he's a transfer from Delaware. His name's Colby Reeder. Big part of Iowa State's defense. Had an interception in the Iowa game, massive play at the time. That one of my favorite guys to watch on that defense, and they got him on a grad transfer from an FCS school. So it's that secondary recruiting or second chance recruiting, where you look at guys. Dimitri Stanley's the same way. Iowa State got him from Colorado, and they had recruited him the first time around. So you can't burn bridges with guys, and then you got to see if they're available down the road, because it just feels like that's where it's going, especially if you're not going to sit out a year to transfer. And I hated that rule in the first place, but now it has the caveat to it is now that the rosters are kind of 1-year rosters, and it's like that's your team this time around.
Yeah. And Coach Brown has been focused. I mean, he's been primarily trying to build the team through high school recruiting, which is fine. But I don't know. I'm not going to say he doesn't have an issue with the transfer portal. He's actually not anti-transfer portal. He just hasn't managed it well, in my opinion. I mean, we got JT Daniels, and that was a great pickup for us, but that's only one position. The tight end spot doesn't look like looks like we might not have hit a home run there. The defensive secondary. There's just several positions on the team where we thought we were actually upgrading, and now as you see the results on the field, you think maybe we didn't upgrade at those positions, And that's all. At the end of the day, that's all on coaching to evaluate these guys and figure out who fits best and who's going to be the better fit for your team. And also, like I've even heard Coach Brown say this himself, you have to recruit players who are still on your team now because you got to keep them. And if you're not doing a good enough job of that, and you lose all these guys to the portal, it just decimates your depth, And that's what's happened to us.
Yeah, it's a tightrope to walk, kind of. I guess I'm using a bad analogy there, but it's difficult, for a coach to be really, really good at it. You got to be a very high level coach to hit on every guy you're recruiting, or hit on most of them. And I know people don't like it in the media, and I think some people think the media themselves put coaches on a pedestal too much, or on too big of a pedestal. Well, that's the only constant in every program in the country, is who the coach is from this year to down the road. And so that, in the same vein of like recruiting and getting guys in the program and stuff, like that's the head guy, his staff, like that's their whole thing. So
yeah, exactly. All right, real quick, let's move on to the key players to watch for this game. Talk a little bit about some stats here, some player stats. I'm not going to share them. I'll just read them out here. Obviously the skill position guys. You got JT Daniels for West Virginia, who's 185 for 293 passing, 1,961 yards, 12 touchdowns, 7 picks. Not a great touchdown to interception ratio there. Hunter Dekkers, 215 for 320, 2151 in yards, 14 touchdowns to 10 picks. There again, he doesn't have a great TD to interception ratio either, though. But he has put up quite a bit of yards. Rushing yards, obviously C.J. Donaldson, who's actually he's going to be out the rest of the season with a lower body injury. They haven't specified what that injury is, but we got word today that he's out the rest of the year. He's got 87 carries for 526 for 8 touchdowns. Jaheim Brock for Iowa State. You said he's also injured, right?
He's banged up right now. I think Campbell said today that he was, for all things considered, healthy. So you consider him healthy. He'll
Okay.
play. But I don't think personally that he looks the same, or maybe there's something to the Big 12 defenses all being different or better at a later point in the season than Iowa was week 2 in September. But yeah, from my looking at him play, I don't think he's playing at 100% right now.
Gotcha. And I think I pronounced his name wrong. It's Jairell Brock. I don't know why. I think I said Jaheim, but it's
Yeah,
Jairell Brock.
Jairell, it gets, there's like a slight draw in the eye sometimes, or a short eye sometimes. Everyone kind of goes differently with it, but I think the correct way is Jairell.
In receiving, you've got Bryce Ford Wheaton for West Virginia, who's got 48 catches for 567 yards and 5 scores. Xavier Hutchinson might be the leading receiver in the conference. I haven't been able to check those stats yet, but he's got 77 catches for 830 yards, 5 TDs. He's the leading receiver in the conference, isn't he?
He's got to be up there. He's got some of the best stats in the nation.
Yeah.
He's really good. He's dropped a couple of passes that I know he really wanted. I know the fans really wanted. I know it could have led to a different result in a game. I don't think a dropped pass from him has cost Iowa State a game. You could argue the Texas one, and it stinks because there's been a couple. But he's, for all things considered, and what he was expected to be this year, I think he's overperforming his expectations. He's having a really solid year. I'm interested to see.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. He's leading the conference in receptions and in yards, and both of them are by large margins.
I would believe his targets are far larger than whoever's number 2 as well.
Yeah. He has 77 catches. Second place is actually Bryce Ford Wheaton with 48. So at least based on what I'm looking at right here, and then in yards, he's got 830. And next in line is Quentin Johnston with TCU with 650. So he's definitely the best receiver in the conference right now.
Yeah, and Hunter Dekkers resorts to finding him a lot, so that's partially where how big those numbers are. But he gets the job done. He catches the football, breaks open for a lot of big plays. I know he hasn't been in the end zone a little bit, but I think you'll see it. I think you might see him score this week. He's a very good receiver for what he is.
Right. Yeah, and just to give those Iowa State fans who might be watching, since C.J. Donaldson is going to be out for us, just look at our other running backs. Tony Mathis, as I said earlier, he's questionable for the game, but if he plays, he has 99 rushes for 492 yards, an average of 5 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns. So he's also a good running back for us. And then Justin Johnson Jr. is next in line. He's got 65 carries for 285 yards, 3 touchdowns. So we're pretty confident in all of our running backs, but when you start getting guys hurt, it becomes a depth issue. And C.J. Donaldson has by far been our most consistent back. He's rushed over 100 yards, I think, in 4 games already this year, maybe 5. So, he's been very consistent, and we're going to miss out with him and wish him nothing but the best in his recovery. And I hate to see it especially because that's his second time. He missed a game a couple weeks ago with a concussion. Comes back, and then 2 games later, he gets this lower body injury, whatever it is, and has to sit out the rest of the year. So, I hate to see it, but like we said earlier, it's a violent game, and unfortunately, injuries are part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested to see how those guys do against Iowa State's defense as well. I haven't seen specifically in the Big 12, but at Iowa State a defense that has been able to dominate in every facet of the game and play so efficiently. You know, they allowed 3 touchdowns to Oklahoma. One was the kicker, or maybe it was 2 touchdowns. I'm backwards on my stuff right now. They had a great game against Oklahoma though, and
Yeah.
one of the touchdowns was the kicker faking it and
Right.
running it himself. So
Yeah, I saw that.
I think they'll put up a low number again. I think they'll get back down to under 20. That's why I say bet the under because Iowa State's offense has scored 13, 21, 9, 11, and 23 points in its last
Wow.
5 games. So
Wow.
there's 3 under 15 right there. And so if you're giving me 52 points, I'll definitely take an under in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually may not be a bad bet right there.
I
I'm
just,
not usually a
I just
betting man, but that's got me wanting to bet now.
yeah, no, it's I'll either bet like 20 in a given day on a Saturday, or
Yeah.
I'll pick one that I'm watching with my buddy, and we'll just bet the over.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's all good, man. And by the way, I forgot to mention this for those of you who may be listening on the audio only. This game is going to be Saturday, November 5th at 3:30 p.m. It will air on ESPN Plus, which is obviously the streaming service, and then and that's 3:30 Eastern time, 2:30 Central, by the way, and it will be played in at Iowa State in Ames, Iowa, which very tough place to play. Neil Brown was actually talking about that today. He said it's one of the toughest places to play in the league, if not the toughest. Um, and West Virginia, and I didn't know this, but I learned this today. West Virginia actually modeled their stadium after Iowa State's.
yeah, I think I had heard about that before.
Yeah.
Right now, Iowa State's going through a real thing with the fan base on. They moved the student section, and people believe that it has made it quieter out there. It's hard to hear in the press box, so I can't really comment on it. But a lot of the people I've talked to, a lot of opposing fans I've seen posting about it on Twitter, have said it felt quieter, it felt better. And is that how the team's performing, or is that product of
Right.
moving the student section to a corner of the stadium that's further away from the field?
Yeah.
No,
Makes sense.
it's a weird thing, but Iowa State fans get very passionate about anything anything they think. I should say any opinion they have.
Oh yeah, West Virginia fans are the exact same way. Anytime somebody does a Twitter poll or a Twitter anything that's where it's a competition, West Virginia fans want to win it. I mean, they want to win that poll big time. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Which fan base has the most Twitter followers? I mean, it's like every West Virginia fan's retweeting it, and I mean, trying to get everybody else to tweet it and vote. I mean, it's insane how passionate uh, these fan bases are, and I really think, not to get off topic too much, but I think that goes throughout the Big 12. I mean, Texas Tech's fan bases like that, Oklahoma's fan bases like that, and obviously they're leaving us, but
Yeah, I think
Oklahoma State's fan base maybe not to that degree, but they're pretty passionate too. Uh, there's just a lot of really passionate fan bases in this league.
Yeah, I think the new set of teams, once Oklahoma and Texas are out, kind of have that mentality of, you know, they want to rise as a conference, and rising tide lifts all ships, right?
Right.
They have that same passion. And I know in the South, they kind of say, like, well, they're in the Midwest. They don't have anything better to do. I mean, I wouldn't say that at all. I got a lot of stuff up here, but um, I do love that it just feels like the programs coming in have it's the same kind of fan bases. They're all really, really passionate, and they all care deeply about college football. So I love to see
Right.
that.
Yeah, me too. Uh, and real quick, and by the way, for those of Iowa State fans who might be wondering what my shirt says,
I love it. That's anytime I see that chanted, it's just funny. I love, especially just any cuss word in a stadium with a bunch of people chanting. I feel
oh,
like America missed the boat on that, where soccer fans are not scared to say anything and they make up songs just to fit it in.
oh yeah. Hey,
I
and
just always hear them
Pitt
laugh.
fans absolutely detest it. I mean, they detest it. And I was actually at the game this year. I was privileged to go to the game, and West Virginia fans were chanting this in the concourse area going into the stadium. Oh man! And then Pitt fans started in, some chant about us or something. I don't know, whatever it was. I don't even remember what it was now, but I think they were saying "Let's go Pitt" or something. And then West Virginia fans obviously started this chant, and it was man, it was such a good time, such a great experience. Uh,
Yeah, they I obviously know which one's got more of a brand if you remember one and not the other, right?
yep, yep, that's right. Uh, Game the result wasn't what we wanted, but I had a great time. As far as keys players to watch, obviously I went over the main skill position players there. Who else for Iowa State do you think West Virginia fans need to be watching for this Saturday?
If you like defensive football, you might not like it being a West Virginia fan on these guys, but Colby Reeder at linebacker, Anthony Johnson at defensive back, and MJ Anderson. All really, really standout seasons so far in the defense. MJ's defensive lineman, but it's super pivotal to how good this Iowa State defense is. And they have, first team preseason All American in Will McDonald on the defensive line. They have Tyler Onyedem that's been huge in recent games. And those guys all make up. I know I literally just said defensive guys to you, and I think we've kind of touched on the offensive guys that are going to be good. But I mean, those five guys are all huge pieces of what that defense does, especially Anthony Johnson. He wears number one of the captains, and you can just tell Iowa State's using him in different ways. That they'll creep him up right on the line. They'll move him back and have him cover someone, and I think that what those guys do will make a huge difference. And I think you look at if how Iowa State's doing in other areas, if that's going to be enough, that just from the defense performing how they will. Because I don't think they've deviated from having a good game. They've had great games basically week in and week out. I'm sure those guys will go to the film room and say, like, oh, we didn't play this good. We didn't play this play. Right. We messed up there, missed assignment, this and that. But really, the defense has been lights out all season. I think that'll be the main difference in this game. And I think you go look at special teams, what Iowa State does there, and on the offense and what they do. As far as the other couple of guys, like Hunter Dekkers at quarterback, uh, you try to limit how he's going to throw the ball or how many times he's going to throw the ball. He threw it 57 times last week, way too much for a guy like him or a quarterback like him at that point in the game. So, how they can use him, how they can get rushing yards in any way to open up the offense is going to be huge. So, Jairo Brock and Cartavius Norton are likely the guys you're going to see. They might run Deion Silas out there as well. But basically, the formula for Iowa State right now on offense is run the ball at all and get Dekkers some momentum and get him passing a little bit. And once Dekkers kind of catches the confidence of a few throws to the right spot in a row, or they start running the hurry up offense, that's kind of where things get rolling downhill rather than pushing uphill, at least for him. So I think you look at trying to limit Iowa State on back to back plays and snapping, little flashes of momentum and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. I'll touch on West Virginia. Obviously, I mentioned the skill players, but for me, the key to this game is going to be on the defensive side of the ball, uh, and that is Charles Woods, our All Big 12 corner, who got injured in the pit game. Finally came back. He actually came back against Texas Tech, but was only able to play a few snaps. He wasn't 100%. Came back last week, played the entire game. They said he's still not 100%. He's probably more like 80%, but Charles Woods at 80% is still probably our best corner. And they were, but I don't know. I don't know if you were able to watch the game last weekend between us and
I
TCU,
haven't I haven't watched it yet. I try to go back and watch highlights and stuff, but I
but
haven't gotten
the
to it.
difference the difference he makes on our defense is unbelievable because they really haven't been able to play any man coverage all year, uh, which is a lot. We've not been able to get any pressure on opposing quarterbacks, and they've just been able to stand back there and pick us apart. Well, the second half of the TCU game, they started playing more man, and they had Charles Woods matched up with Quentin Johnston. Now, Quentin Johnston still had some catches, but he didn't have the type of game that he's used to having. Charles Woods actually did a pretty good job covering him, held his own anyway. So I'm sure they'll probably match Charles Woods up against Xavier Hutchinson this week. So that'll be a very interesting matchup to watch. How can Charles Woods do covering Hutchinson? And if he's able to at least hold his own, Hutchinson's going to get his yards. There's no way you're not going to shut him down completely. But if they can limit his yardage and allow our defensive linemen to get a little bit of pressure, a little more pressure, and then, of course our linebackers along with them, if they can blitz more and get some pressure on Dekkers and force him into making some mistakes, which he obviously is prone to do at times based on his numbers, I feel pretty good because our run defense has actually been fairly solid this year. We've been able to stop the run pretty good. Well, I mean, we've had our moments, but overall, our run defense has been decent. So if we can get pressure on Dekkers and force him to throw a couple picks and just limit Hutchinson's yardage, I think West Virginia has. I think that's their best chance to win this game, to be honest. And so Charles Woods to me is a key player to watch in this game, just for that simple reason. He's going to be lined up against Xavier Hutchinson. And then the other defensive player I would say would probably be our defensive front: Dante Steele, Sean Martin, and Jordan Jefferson. That's by far our best unit on the defense, if not the entire team. To be honest, they've been limited on what they can do because we play a 3-down front, and when they don't have help from the linebacker spot, all the pressure's on them. And they get double teamed, and so they're not able to get as much pressure as they'd like to. So it's going to be interesting to see how those guys do this coming weekend against Hunter Dekkers and that passing attack. And offensively, really, it's going to see how these running backs step up with C.J. Donaldson being out. How these backup running backs can step up and fill that spot and perform. For a couple of them, it'll be their biggest chance to show what they can do. To be honest, and JT Daniels is going to have to play better than he's played the last 2 weeks. He's not played well at all, in my opinion, the last 2 weeks. He's got to step up and play better and make some throws downfield. Now we're going to move over to keys to victory. Connor, what would you say in your mind as an Iowa State guy? What would you think the keys to victory are for Iowa State in this game?
Sure. I would say if you run the ball for 100 yards, you should win the game. And a lot of people might look at that, and luckily we're doing this with the explanation being the last 45 minutes. Because if I just listed that off, someone would see it and be like, "You mean as a team rush for 100 yards a game?" Yeah. I would say rushing for 100 is definitely a big thing for them, especially just the mental mind games and stuff like that. To your own team looking at it on a scoreboard and seeing like three numbers, 3-digit number like that would be huge for those guys. Get momentum and make no mistakes on special teams, and your defense will take care of you. And that's kind of been the formula every week. And Iowa State's just the only thing you can say about them is they've been right there in every game like that. I hope that's not too shallow of an answer, but it really, I feel like it's rush for 100 yards. Dekkers needs to protect the football, attempt to throw no interceptions, and you're always trying not to throw one, right? But and then let your defense take care of you and don't make any mistakes on special teams, and that's really what will get you the win almost every week if you're Iowa State, and they haven't been able to do that. So
and on West Virginia's side, I mean, I kind of touched on it a minute ago when I was talking about Charles Woods, but we need to be able to limit, Xavier Hutchinson's yardage because I'm not saying he's the only player you guys have, but obviously he's. I mean, you look at the number of targets he has; he's by far the number one guy.
You can
And,
almost
I know they get him the ball as many times as they can.
Yeah, from opposing teams' standpoint, I think you can almost say that at times because Iowa State has Jalen Noel, and they're going to run plays to get him the football. They're going to run plays to get Hutch the football. And those have really been the only two consistent players that have kind of looked the part every week in and week out. So I think you can absolutely say that attacking at least the best player on the offense side is definitely the start of your game plan if you're West Virginia anyway.
Yeah. And I would like to see us. I personally would like to see our offense move a little faster, more like Texas Tech does. I'm not saying we have to go as fast as they do, but at least to try to put more pressure on that Iowa State because as good as that defense is, you need to do something to put some pressure on them and maybe hurrying it up, speeding it up a little bit, not allowing them to substitute. Maybe wearing the guys out a little bit. Maybe to me, I'd like to see West Virginia's play a faster pace on the offensive side. I think that could be important. Um, and obviously, we need, it's cliche, but we need to run. We need to be able to run the football. I mean, I think you could pretty much say that in every game, honestly, at least for us, because our offense just doesn't. I know, yes, Graham Harrell's an air raid coach, but we don't. Our air raid needs. We've got to be able to run the football. Um, we can't rely strictly on the passing game, and the games we've had to do that has been the ones that we've struggled the most in. So we've got to be able to run the football. I think we need to run a hurry up style offense, put pressure on your all's defense to make it harder on them, and then I think on defensively we need to hopefully play some man coverage, try to limit Xavier Hutchinson's yardage, and put some pressure on Dekkers. Because I'm confident we can probably stop the running game. So I think stopping Dekkers would be a key for us. Hopefully, even force him into a couple picks.
Well, that tells me your guys' season hasn't been near as bad as a normal 3-5 would be. I would be confident in you guys stopping the run too.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have in every game now, but like I said, they've had moments where they, as good as a running team as Pitt is, we held them in check. So I mean, I think West Virginia, last I checked, we're top half of the league in rush defense. So
yeah, and Iowa State played the number 9 rushing defense in the Big 12 in Kansas, and that was where the rushing issue really started.
right.
Brad got hurt. And then they played the worst rushing defense in the league against Oklahoma last week, and still did not find 100 yards. So
Yeah, we're actually 4th in the Big 12 in rushing defense right now, giving up 133 yards a game in rushing yards. So yeah, you guys are 2nd behind Baylor, but yeah.
that I think fell in the last week because I think Iowa State was up in first in every category, but Oklahoma.
Well, you're not far behind them. You're only behind them by a little bit, but Baylor had that really great performance against Texas Tech.
Yeah.
To kind of move them up there. But yeah, that's the keys to victory for me. I didn't mention special teams, but obviously special teams is key. West Virginia has struggled at times this year to field punts. Looks like they've gotten that shored up by changing their punt returner. We've struggled in the return game a little bit, and I've been able to do real well there. But we have made some plays on defense. We've blocked some kicks this year. Actually had a field goal return or an extra point rather, return for 2 against Baylor, which helped us win that game. So I'd like to see us get a special teams play, maybe a turnover, or maybe even a score on special teams too.
Iowa State is the program to look for that for. They've had a lot of issues in special teams over the years.
Yeah.
Two punts blocked against Iowa. There's one against Texas that was blocked as well. Guy ran in, just uncovered, untouched. I think if your fans that listen to this have played the NCAA 2014 EA Sports video game, and you know how like low and kind of slow the kicks looked on that game. I don't know if you played it at all.
I haven't, no.
Oh,
I'm sure a lot of my listeners have.
Oh, if any of you guys have played it, Jace Gilbert kicks a ball almost exactly the same way. It's the most video game kick I've ever seen from that specific engine in that video game that they put out. But I'm excited for the new one next year.
Yeah, they say that's going to be a great one. I'm hearing a lot of chatter about it on Twitter. I don't know, for whatever reason, I never did. I kind of lost my interest in video games, and I tried to get my passion for it back a few years ago. I went out and bought the new Madden game when it came out. I'm like, I'm gonna buy this Madden game. I'm gonna start playing. I played it one time, and I don't think I ever played it again.
It's tough.
Of course, now that I'm doing this, I wouldn't have time anyway. So
yeah, no kidding. I work enough that I just come back and I'll play it for 30 minutes and go to sleep and call it a day.
I hear you. Real quick, are you comfortable giving a score prediction for this game?
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't thought about it, but off the top of my head, with how it's going, I like giving weird scores when I do predictions too. So I'll do Iowa State 15, West Virginia. I want to go right on the spread and say West Virginia 9.
So what you said, 15-9?
Yeah, 15-9.
That is an odd score. I like it.
I think the 9 will come from one touchdown and a blocked punt recovered by one of the Cyclones in the end zone.
I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a close game. I I don't think Iowa State covers the spread.
See, that's why I put it right on there.
Yeah, but
It's
I
a
do
push.
think, you guys win the game just because it's at your place, and your defense it has been elite, and our offense has been inconsistent. Uh, I'm going to say 24-21 Iowa State.
High scoring one for the crowd at Ames.
What's that?
So that's a high scoring one for the fans and Ames that have watched all
Well,
year.
you haven't seen our pass defense.
I'm sorry. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah,
fun.
we gave up over 500 yards of offense like 2 games in a row. So not this past game, but the 2 before that.
Yeah.
We actually gave up almost 600 in one game. So, and most of it was through the air. So it's you guys could potentially have a big day if depending on how Dekkers and Hutchinson are if they're both having a good day, he might have 10 catches for 200 yards.
Yeah, and that's the thing is he goes to Hutchinson so much. I think you have to kind of circle him if you're the West Virginia defense, if you're the defensive coordinator there. You have to start your game plan with how do we go attack in the ways that we can against this guy.
Yeah, and I've been hard on the defensive secondary, but I'll be honest with you, our linebackers is really where we struggled a lot. Our linebackers just struggle to cover running. Last week, TCU ate us up, putting wide receivers on our safeties and linebackers. Man, they couldn't handle them, and they kept burning us time after time after time. So the second half, the coaching staff said, "You know what? We're just going to start putting pressure. We're going to go to man, put more pressure on the quarterback, and try to force them into some mistakes." And it worked. I mean, we were able to. I mean, we had chances to win that game, and our offense blew it, but our defense played well enough second half to win that game. Actually, probably one of the best performances our defense has had all year. To be honest,
yeah, they had a shot, right? I mean, it wasn't.
Oh yeah, we were down 3 points.
Yeah, I remember watching
and had the ball driving with 4 minutes to go in the game, and couldn't score. So we actually had 3 straight possessions, and got 3. That we held them and only got 3 points out of it, and that was the difference in the game. So because that last touchdown they scored was kind of a garbage touchdown.
Yeah,
so it really. I mean, they had a free play on us, so he just chunked it into the end zone, and they went up and got it. But
yeah, that's something that if you're Neil Brown, if you're a fan of him, that you really needed to win that game.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's and I have nothing against the guy. I mean, he's like I said, he's a great guy, but he's getting paid $4 million to win football games, and he's not doing it. This is the worst 4-year stretch in West Virginia football since the late '70s. So, because even when we've had losing seasons in the past, we've always turned around the next year and won 7, 8, 9 games, and we're not doing that right now. So, it's he's definitely under a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of rumors floating around out there that he's going to be gone after this year. I don't know how accurate that is, but it makes sense. I mean, because he is definitely feeling the heat. I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Problem is, if we fire him, we'll have to pay him $16.7 million. So.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if the buyouts keep kind of trending straight upward like they have in college football over the years. It's been like I've seen so many coaches get fired and take home a ton of money. You look at Harsin at Auburn. When are we going to look at buyouts? And I know you want to be defensive so that someone doesn't come and poach your coach, but when is it going to be like, okay, you got to make sure this is the guy if you're going to give him a huge buyout?
Yeah, I think it. To be honest with you, I think it's going to be when the donors decide they don't want to give money anymore, because I think that's where most of the money's coming from is the donors. And when these donors decide they're going to stop paying, that's I mean, I don't know if they ever will, because those guys don't seem to be running out of money anytime soon. So.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas A&M, look at the deal they've got. I mean, Jimbo, it's like a $95 million buyout or whatever, or something like that, something crazy. And
theirs is funny that just you couldn't pick a more disastrous season than Texas A&M has had as a program right now, coming from, I think they finished first in the recruiting rankings for the class
Yeah.
coming in, or the last class, one or the
Yeah,
other.
they were.
And what they've done this year, it's just insanely bad, between
Yeah.
on the field, on the record. And, earlier in the season, you have your Yell practice video being, quote, leaked. And the only reason I would say it's leaked is because all the jokes in it were terrible.
Yeah.
I was watching that like, man, I'd be embarrassed if I wrote any of those,
Yeah. I didn't even see that one. I saw the one that got leaked before the Appalachian State game where they were making fun of
Yeah, that's what it
Mountaineers.
was.
Was that
Yeah,
the one you're talking about?
yeah. There's two different ones because
Okay.
it happened the week after or 2 weeks after.
Okay.
Yeah, like
And
Appalachia's not a state. I was sitting there like, what's he? Why does he have a microphone? Who gave
yeah,
him
really.
that?
Well, and I'm thinking, and they were making fun of the Appalachians. I'm thinking, do they not realize their head coach is from West Virginia? I mean, they were just insulting their own coach. Uh, and then you had the whole deal where the coach got caught on camera saying, pointing to the seats and saying, "These are the guys paying you to play football here." Did you see that one?
I don't think so.
Yeah, they had some recruits on campus, and one of the assistant coaches or somebody or one of the staffers, I'm not sure who it was, pointed to the suites and said, "These are the people paying you to play here."
Yeah, and with the NIL stuff,
Yeah,
at least that's over the table, and about it. I
yeah.
guess. I think it's gonna happen.
But that happened just a few days after Jimbo claimed that they weren't paying anybody. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
he's really funny with his kind of stuff, and just his quotes and everything. He
Mhm.
finds himself in real mental pickles a lot, and that's why Matt Campbell will never, he'll never say like, "Yeah, we want to go to a bowl game this year." Of course he does. Of course, that's probably the goal right now is to finish 3-1 and go to a bowl
Mhm.
game. He's never going to say that out loud. He's never going to get caught because he knows people will take. I'm sure someone's going to hit him in a couple weeks with the 6-6 bullshit programs go 6-6
Mhm.
quote, because that's a huge big poster graphic that's been
Yeah,
made for Campbell, in support of him. And he's not on the hot seat by any means, but he's very guarded in everything he says.
yeah,
So
yeah. Coach Brown is too, to an extent, and it drives the fan base batty because uh, they don't tell us anything, and when they do tell us something, it usually turns out to be wrong.
yeah, I'll tell you what, it gets a lot easier to look at it when you're winning than when you're losing. Um, yeah, it's because it is frustrating. You never know if a guy's actually hurt or if he's not hurt and going to play for sure. Or usually, if he's healthy, Campbell will say he's healthy. But that's about the only constant that
Yeah, I just
he
don't
has when it
understand
comes to
the
stuff.
sudden secrecy, and I don't know if Matt Campbell does this or not. But when Neil Brown gives the injury report, he never gives any detail. All he'll say is such and such is out, or
Will he give like upper and lower body injury?
yeah, he'll do that occasionally.
That's a hockey coach thing. That's a big NHL thing because they don't want.
Dana Holgerson would tell you this guy's got an ACL tear. He's out for the year. I mean, you know
Yeah,
what I'm
and
saying?
like the season-ending ones, usually will get disclosed. Iowa State had a guy, and I've never seen this. At least I'm a huge hockey fan, huge NHL guy, big Dallas Stars fan, and I've never seen a season-ending injury that was undisclosed. Iowa State had one today, and Malik Verdon. He's a good defensive back, young guy. I think he's a redshirt freshman this year. But I've never seen this because the season-ending ones, the belief to label an injury as upper body or lower body is to be as non-descriptive as possible, but you're still technically being descriptive, right? The advantage of that is to not have any part of your body that someone can target in a game, and something that's absolutely a dirty player, absolutely a targeted attack. If you're gonna
Yeah,
take out a guy's leg because he has a bad knee,
yeah,
you don't want to think that happens, but you have to think that happens
yeah.
sometimes. That's the reason for it. But yeah,
Makes
I
sense,
was
I
caught
guess.
off guard when I heard season-ending injury, and the question came up with what was the surgery for, and he goes undisclosed.
Yeah,
Not yeah, we're not telling you. It's like
yeah.
a
Coach Brown, even if it's season ending, I mean, like today with C.J. Donaldson, he said it's a lower body. All he said that somebody said, "Is it a knee?" He said it's not a knee, but he's out for the year.
Yeah, and it's I would assume it's going to be weird when we end up talking to Malik if he'll say what it is or not, because I know they put the kids through media practice and stuff, but you went through your own injury, and you're probably going to have stories talking about what it was. So
Yeah.
either that or it's something completely um, off the table that you wouldn't think about, a very unique type of thing. So I'm not sure what it was, and it could be something that's appropriately undisclosed. So I have no idea what it is, but I was just shocked that we saw that today.
Yeah, he will talk about like he with C.J. Donaldson, where he got hurt on national television. It was pretty obvious. So with he always went with the concussion. He obviously disclosed that one because I mean everybody in the country knew what was wrong with him, right?
Yeah, and that's another thing that's like, well, if you have a concussion, you're not going to come back onto the field until they deem you like absolutely good to play. And it's a very big penalty to hit someone in the head. So that's another one that's like you have no fear of anyone cheap shotting you for this. So we're going to just disclose it.
Yeah. Well, Connor, one more time, man. Let everybody know where they can find you and what kind of shows you're doing these days.
Yeah, so cyclonefanatic.com and on Twitter and alwaysraceday.com. Same Twitter username, same thing on Facebook for both brands. I'm a funny guy. I will love to joke with you, make them funny if you're going to tweet a joke at me. But yeah, shoot me a follow. I love talking football with people, and I'm not going to sit here with rose-colored glasses for whatever team I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
Appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, man. And for those of you who are listening and not watching, his Twitter handle is at CFChangs9. At CFChangs9.
And we came up with that in high school because there is not a Connor Ferguson handle out there without like a 3-digit number behind it. I just didn't want that. It's such a common name, I guess, and I don't think I've ever seen, met, or known of anyone with that name. So
I got you. That's funny. I was wondering where it came from.
yeah, it was just in high school. Everyone's Twitter handle was a pun with the name. So instead of PF Changs, it was going to be CF Changs, and that was taken too. So
I got you. Well, once again, Connor, thanks, man. I really appreciate you doing this. I know we've had to reschedule a couple of times, and I apologize for that. But I appreciate you being flexible and working with me, man. And good luck to you guys the rest of the season, except for this weekend. And hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, all good. We'll do it for basketball. I'll be available the whole year, so we'll work a date in and stuff like that. We'll get it done.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. I have to end my show with this. Q Country Roads.